But again, like I said, you get rid of your bar ditches, which are clear out here. And so you can see the lines here where the bar ditches are kind of shown. That kind of gives you an idea of what the limits of construction are expected to be. So if you want to go to the next slide. Oh, sorry. This was just a blow up of that same screen. This showed kind of where we are at with the right of way. Again, we were looking at 17 foot, and by changing and building all at once, we were able to get down to 5.5 foot. You can move forward. So our recommendation would be to approve the design concept as is, and then if we get that, we'll be going to City Council on October 5th to have them hear the proposed design concept for approval.
Questions from the board?
Yes, sir.
I just have one thought. I'm sure there's nothing you can do about this, but if you look at the medians out there on 21st and Zoo Boulevard, they're absolutely full of boulders or whatever that is.
I'm sorry, what?
There's something that's digging little holes in the medians out there. I don't
Oh,
know if you
yeah.
know that soil out there is kind of lends itself to that.
Yeah, it's sand. It's just like my neighborhood.
I don't know if there's anything that can be
No.
done. It looks like a very beautiful project, but I think as soon as you do it, they're going to move in.
Knolls, I think, are just a product of the sandy environment. Sorry, I haven't figured out how to get rid of them in my yard yet either. I live along the river. So, Sean, did you have anything you wanted to add? Anybody from Trans System want to add anything? We good? You want to open it up to questions? I think we'll have a few.
So we'll open it to the audience for comments. If you have questions, what we do is we gather all those questions and then we'll ask those all at the end, so we don't take your time back and forth with questions and answers. So when you come up, state your name, address, and make your comments, ask questions. 3 minutes. So.
My name is Mark Bauer. I've lived on Hoover 23 years and own 2 properties, approximately 700 running feet total along Hoover. We take really good care of our property, and including edging and trimming. And one of my concerns with the 6-foot sidewalk on the west side is every week trimming 210-foot sidewalk and curbs, which is not going to be fun. I'm not opposed to changes in the area. The 3-lane road is really good. The sidewalk on the east side is great. I'm against the width of the sidewalk on the east side, and I'm totally against the width on the west side. Like I say, living in the area, I kind of know what kind of traffic's going on. It is getting more housing around, but I actually did a study of my own. Now, I realize this isn't what the city decided to do, but this is the National Highway Engineering on Pedestrian Facilities Study. I don't know what a pedestrian facility is, but it has to do with sidewalks. National Highway Engineering suggests 18 to 24-inch single path or 36 to 48 for dual path. That's 2 people passing each other. Or 60-inch for combination path for pedestrians, scooters, wheelchairs. 6 foot or 60 inches. The minimum width of 5.5 feet is designed for all pedestrian traffic up to 1,200 pedestrians in an hour. That's 5.5 feet. We're putting a 10-foot sidewalk on one side and a 6-foot sidewalk on the other side. I don't get it. There's not that many people in a 1-mile radius of our property. And it also goes on to say all sidewalk widths should be only considered after a pedestrian volume study has been completed. And I guess my question is to maybe James, how many pedestrians are expected to use the sidewalk, and did the city do a volume study on that? And if they did, I'd like to get a copy of it.
We'll we'll gather all the questions.
Okay.
and answer them all at the end.
And then that's pretty much it, but I also wanted to say it seems that most areas I recently observed regarding sidewalks is that there is really no rule of thumb. The widths are all over the place, but I did notice that 5-lane roads generally have a sidewalk on both sides. They're mostly 5 foot and 6 foot in width. A lot of the 3-lane roads had a sidewalk on one side using 6 foot. Now, some of the roads may be older than that. I think the city has changed their width requirements on new construction. The best example of what I would like to see my road look like is 29th Street, which was being redone not too long ago. Has 3 lanes, 1 6-foot sidewalk on one side. It's just like our community. It's got high-end homes on one side, businesses and an actual community entrance on the other side. We do not need a total of 16 foot of sidewalk in our area that doesn't have much foot traffic. It is indeed, and it is unneeded and is a blatant misuse of taxpayers' money as far as I'm concerned. I've also been told that the area around 21st and Zoo, Hoover, 21st and Zoo surrounding the new water treatment plant hasn't even been completely designed out yet. It seems that if this is true, then our neighborhood would be subjected to a lot of additional road closures and construction work that could or should be done at the same time. Same goes for Hoover going north to 53rd Street. That's being developed very quickly. And if it was my money being spent, which it is, I would just as soon the city wait and do the whole project at one time. I talked with the manager of the one of the city water partners on the city water plant, because I wanted to tour the place actually. And he said that that was a 3-year project, assuming they didn't run into trouble, and they've already into that project for at least a year. So I'm thinking on the outside, 3 years, you should be able to finish up the intersection of 21st Hoover and Zoo Boulevard, in which time would be the best time to take it from that at least to 29th Street, but possibly all the way to 53rd, and then you're done with it. That whole area north of 29th Street is developing very fast. And it's going to catch up on you guys real quick. And that's all I got.
Okay, thanks. Next speaker?
My name's David Karp. I live in the 2700 block of Hoover, right in the area that's being looked at here. As part of the whole process following along the previous, starting in 2019, and I'm not going to go back through all of that. Except I guess I want to ask maybe a question. I'm not sure if it's a question or a statement, but after we went through that process, it went through the district advisory board, it went to the city council. I was at all of those meetings. I was at the city council. But when the concept was approved, but when we got the letters as well as the contacts for procurement, they were asking for more feet of right-of-way than what was agreed upon. And so I guess I asked to the board and to those who are designing this, do we have assurances that what you are presenting to us will be what you're really going to ask for at the end? That's all I've got to say.
Anybody else? All right.
Clayton Pearson, 1442 North Coolidge. This is an area I actually know very well. I've been bike commuting close to 37th and Ridge for about the past 3 or 4 years. It's not fun. Used to take Ridge until it got totally crazy. This is the route I take now, from Zoo Boulevard to 29th, cut through the cul-de-sacs to make it to work. Hoover currently also isn't fun. Kind of like this, I kind of don't like this. It's kind of, to me, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. On one hand, the reason it's not comfortable is it's designed to not be comfortable. for pedestrians or cyclists. Take a walk on Hoover right now, see if you would want to take that walk again, because there's nothing there. Also, 3-lane street, on one hand, I wish I had that street around my neighborhood. That would be a major improvement. So I like that. What I don't like on it is it's currently a 2-lane street. What a 3-lane street is signaling, in that we think that that street doesn't have the capacity to hold the traffic that we're expecting in the future. We want more traffic, therefore we must build for it. It raises concerns for me. What are we developing north of there? As thinly and as lightly dense as that area already is, does that mean that's going to be an unlivable place without driving? As it is right now, I do think this is an improvement if you want to get somewhere, if you are unable or unwilling to drive. Still minimal facilities, though. If you live on 27th and Ridge, you're not going to walk with your friends to Wendy's or Brahms with the facilities that are there. It's just unpleasant. In the end, if I'm one of your members, I'd probably vote yes for it, because in this part of town, it's the best I've seen. Again, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I did have 2 questions on there. Is, if I understand correctly, the multi-use path, we're moving within 5 feet of the road on a 35-mile-an-hour design street. Is that correct? And then also, what does the City of Wichita Public Works consider maximum capacity or the capacity range of a 2-lane street? And I'm done.
Anybody else? Okay, well, I'll bring it back to the board. I'm going to ask some questions, James, so we can get those answered. So the first question I heard was, how many pedestrians, have we done a study to see how many pedestrians would use this sidewalk?
No, we have not.
And I guess the question is, do we usually do that?
No, we do not.
But,
What we do have here is a little bit different. Sean can maybe answer this a little bit better. We do have a bike and pedestrian plan, and this follows that. And so that, in regards, we don't have a count of people, but this is what has been identified as a key area in that plan. And so the other thing you have here is that you have Sedgwick County Park, and you have a planned park at 29th north of K96. What that does is it makes a park-to-park connection for the future, and that's what we're planning for the future, for that. So those are the 2 things that kind of unite this, and Sean may have more to say about this because he's right here behind me.
No, I may just want to point out what James talked about, the park-to-park connection. That's a big component of this, and a big reason we started to look at this. Obviously, the park to the north of K96 has not been built yet. There's actually a future project to actually get underneath K96 in the CIP currently. It's pretty hard to do a study when there's nothing there now, so it's a little bit hard to see. I mean, you can ask people around there how many people would use it, but when you have people going to and from the park, they may not be necessarily living just on this section of road. They could always live on 29th Street. They could live in other locations that could actually use this.
So we do not have a true study for this. I don't know that you'd have very many people counted as travelers down on a dirt street or a dirt path edge road. So I'm not sure how you can make that jump.
and then there was a question about the right-of-way, of how much right-of-way, I guess, is in a plan here, and then we would ask for more right-of-way.
So what we had was previously was a concept of how much it was going to need. And I believe the right-of-way request stayed the same, but I could be wrong about that. It's been a few days since I went over this. But what there is a difference between, in order to build something within the right-of-way, a lot of the times you need what they call a temporary easement as well. And so typically what we would do is if you had, say like you needed to build a flat path, you know, and the ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, requires you to maintain a 2% or less slope across any type of sidewalk. That's fairly flat. You know, that's 2 inches across, 2.5 inches across 10 feet. So if you have more slope than that, which you're putting the path on, you know, and you're putting that to the back of your right-of-way, do you just dig a hole there if you have an existing slope? So no, what you do is you purchase what they call a temporary easement, which allows you to grade that back at a smooth transition into the property and restore that property, and then that goes back to the property owner after you are done with construction. There is the possibility that still is going to be necessary. So what we show is the right-of-way, which is what would be asked to permanently belong as right-of-way, not temporarily. So typically what you're going to see, and with this project, I'm not quite sure what the grades are going to change. The storm sewer and how that road is designed, when you transition from a match street with ditches into a curved street, you have to drain people's property into the road. And so that changes how that height is on that. So there's a possibility that some temporary easement will be necessary to make that work. This area is fairly flat, so I don't see that as being huge, but we have to get into the weeds of actual design in order to be able to determine that exactly. And so I can't remember exactly, but that's probably what you were seeing previously, is a right-of-way of about 17 foot, which was, I think, what we showed in our previous, plus 5 foot of temporary easement. Does that sound about right?
You know, I think the agreement was 15 feet, and then the letter didn't come out, and they're trying to procure 17 feet. And even portions on the farm, the business side, I think they were saying they could get down to 13 and a half feet. They came in 17 feet.
So the right-of-way changes so much in here. Every property is a little bit different to a certain degree, and so I can't. Some of it was 15 foot, some of it was 17 foot. I believe your guys is a little bit further north was 17. Some of the stuff to the south was 15, and so there are a couple changes. Chad might remember a little bit more, maybe. I don't know. No, okay, yeah. So there was a couple places that were a little bit shy of what the 17 foot was on that project, if I recall. So I'll forgive me, I don't know the exact numbers on every property out there, but there were some variations in how that was done. And so the intent was not to tell you wrong. It just, that's the actual part that we determined when. And it was the same throughout for the most part. We tried to minimize as much as we could and still keep the bar ditches functioning. So.
Are you confident of your current plan?
I mean, this should be fairly accurate. I mean, am I going to say they're going to be down to the inch? No, but we're pretty close on what we're going to need. So it's shown as 5.5 foot, I think, through your area, and that should be fairly close. And so. Yeah, I don't see anything other than possibly needing temporary easement past that.
Okay, and then, is the multi-use path within 5 feet of the road?
So, can you go back to the thing, to the slide that had I think it was slide 5, one more back, right there and down at the bottom left. If you want, yeah, can you zoom in just a little bit more? No, to the bottom, to your left there.
Yeah, shows 5 feet.
Yeah. So, yeah. So on the path side, I don't remember who asked that. Was it you guys? Okay. So on the path side, the recommendation for the minimum is 5 foot off of the edge of the road. And so that's on the 10-foot side. And then we have a 1-foot buffer in between the proposed right-of-way, and so that people can put up fencing like they said that they would like to do. On the other side where just the sidewalk is, we're proposing a 4-foot path, and then again, a small little buffer there as well.
And what's the 2.5 feet?
2.5 feet is the curb section. So you have your lane, and then outside of the lanes, you have 2.5 foot curb. Yeah.
I guess if I can just elaborate, the reason for that question is I'm from North Riverside. Thankfully, we're getting some redesigns on McLean. One of the reasons, now granted, currently McLean is 40-mile-an-hour zone, but one of the problems that we were seeing on McLean is road incidents that started on McLean didn't necessarily stay on. Just 3 weeks ago, we had a truck go through McLean, go through the trees, probably took out a tree, probably dead in the next year or so. Probably went 15 feet through that area. Now, there's speeding involved. But that is part of my concern with widening the road to a 3-lane, is that speed concern. Are we inducing speeding during low traffic times when we already have, it seems to me, we already have excess capacity with a 2-lane street. We expand it to 3. We're reducing that buffer. And are we inducing more speeding during the low traffic?
So there's quite a few questions in there, and I'll start to try to pick them off one by one. One, I'm very familiar with McLean. I live right off of it. I've traveled up and down McLean for 7 miles each direction to go to work for 16 years, so I'm quite familiar with people driving through into the river. And so a lot of that, I've seen a couple crews down there off south of Kellogg pulling someone out of the river because they ran through there. So I understand your concerns with that. McLean is not a straight road at all. I think I once counted, in order to get home, I had to turn off of center of my car 56 times in that 6 miles. So there is a slight difference here that this is straight. A lot of the roads that are designed for this, with this design, are designed at 45 miles per hour. So the safety-wise, it does provide what you need there. We don't plan on changing the speed limit out here, if I'm not mistaken. So, it would stay at 35. Does that sound right?
Right.
Because it comes to curb and gutter, our typical standard is 40. That doesn't mean we are proposing to raise it in this case. Most times that's what it is we get there to do it. So yeah, I would say 35 is something, especially if there's concerns about that, to keep it at.
I've had a couple people already whistle about, holy cow, what if you raise the speed limit? So I didn't think we were going to go above that. I can't guarantee anything, but that's kind of what my thoughts were. So ultimately that would be discussed, but I think that's kind of somewhere where we would be at.
And James, wasn't I thought the reason for the 3-lane now is for safety, not for traffic. I mean, that might be an outcome, but it's for safety.
It's both. The 3-lane road has the capacity to carry quite a bit more traffic as far as that goes, because you get rid of your left turning movements, the people can move forward when it's congested. It's not going to change a whole lot of capacity currently on the road. I think there was a question about how much capacity could the road carry. I think 12,000 is a really easy number out here. I think up to 17,000 is when 15 to 17,000 is when we start
That's
looking.
typically what we're looking for a 3-lane. It is once we hit 17, then we start looking at a 5-lane. We don't build an even number of lanes anymore.
Yeah.
I can tell you, 119th, not close to where I live, intersection of that 2-lane. I wish we never would have built. there's too many access points, and it comes down to safety of people getting in and out of those access points and being able to get out of traffic that the people are going through. Is ultimately what it comes down to. But we're also building this in the future. We're not gonna touch this for some time. So we do want to be able to have some capacity that when this area does completely build out, whatever that looks like, that you can still carry the traffic, walk the road is in shape, that's good enough shape to do so.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but 40% increased safety is what I'm remembering when you switch from an even lane to an odd lane roadway, if I remember something like that. It's a huge jump, and even if it saves one person, you know, it's worth that.
And it's definitely better than what we have on Ridge and many other streets.
All right, any more questions from the board?
I have one, you mentioned that we need to kind of dovetail this with the new water treatment facility and the construction of that. I think maybe I just missed it. When do you expect to start the project if it gets approved, and when do you think it will finish up?
So our funding is set for 2023. So he mentioned that we're in the first year of a 3-year program with the water, and so right now they're looking at the end of 2023 as being the end of the water treatment facility. So our times are going to mix and match pretty well. That's the reason this was moved. Or was it 23 or 24? This is 23, right? Yeah, sorry, I'm getting 2 projects mixed up. I apologize. So yeah, the 2 time frames mesh well together. It's just being able to coordinate with what their plans are, because they have so many requirements. They're trying to mix 1,000 different types of requirements together to get what they need, and that changes from day to day on exactly what they're going to do. And so we are working with them to coordinate and try to reduce the amount of disturbance in this area. There's no lie about it. When you do construction, it gets messy, and it's going to be an inconvenience. It's just how it is. There's no way to sugarcoat that much more than it's going to be an inconvenience, and a large one. So
when would it start?
2023 sometime, probably mid to late 2023, but we really don't know exactly what our schedule. We have to let the water facility dictate that, or if we wanted to build it ahead of time, there's a good chance they're going to tear brand new stuff right up. And so we're at the mercy of that design and criteria a little bit under, and so our goal would be to coordinate so that you have as little amount of downtime there as possible.
Yeah, just a comment. You're probably aware there's a tremendous amount of golf cart traffic in Sandcrest and Emerald Bay.
Yes, that's come up twice today, it sounds like, already.
So is that one of the reasons you put the 10-foot path in there, recognizing that it's going to get used for that?
No, the object is not to have golf carts down that.
But it'll happen. I live on 135th, and people drive down the side to go to Maple, 135th and Maple, yeah, it happens. There's only so much we can do. We can put bollards and different things like that. The bike community is not like those. You catch a pedal on one of those, it's going to stop you real quick. So it's a combination of trying to make everything work. But yes, it will happen. We've actually sticking them up over time with the 10-foot wide path because utility vehicles will use them as well as a driveway when they're going out doing stuff. So it's an ever-moving target that we are ever evolving on those as far as the design.
Whether it was your intent or not, I have to agree with the 10-foot width because that's going to happen.
It's standard for like multi-use path. We have pedestrians and bikes. Typically bikes don't ride one behind the other. They're wanting to talk and do whatever. If you have multiple people going, so it you meet pedestrians. I mean, I lived along Ridge, just south of the park, so south of 13th, and it's 5 foot wide. Anytime you got a bike, one of you getting off. So that's why we've gone to the 6 foot wide, and even a bit of pedestrian, especially when you have a fence up against it. It's pretty tough to have two grown people walk next to each other or meet each other there in 5 feet.
We also follow recommendations. I'm not quite sure where the others came from. I apologize, but, you know, we have a design guide that we follow on this, and it's posted under planning. And it clearly states that we should have something of this size. Yes, ma'am. If I'm hearing you right, I apologize. I didn't quite catch all that. You're asking, we're not coming back for a different type of design another time. This is going to be the end of the design questions that we get for this. Yes, we hope that once we get this done, that there wouldn't have to be anything improved on this road for my time with the city at least. That doesn't mean that maintenance won't be done, but no real reconstruction of the area. So once we get to that point, we would expect it to be the final decision after council votes.
And part of the reason this one came down was because one of the things we heard from the neighbors when this came the first time was, why are we doing this when at some time you're going to turn the street into a 3-lane or something, you're going to do something. And so the city council heard that and so decided to slow this down and see, okay, is there a way to finish the street at the same time that the rest of the construction is done? And Public Works was able to figure that out and manage those two schedules. So that's why it's out here.
By the time we started getting to where we were having to phase that with the delays that we were having with other projects, that was an ultimately, I think, good decision that came down after, and that's after it was approved. And so typically you don't see that ever come back for a second time.
All right, well, I will entertain a motion.
Excuse me. Only because of the staff's comments that I had additional questions after their comments. Is there any way that I can ask a couple more questions? It's only because of what they said after their presentation. That's the only reason.
Okay.
Sorry. Trina Bauer, and I live at 2615 North Hoover. And I've been working with James, and he's great with answering questions, but you brought some more stuff up after the presentation. So can you tell us when the park completion, the North Park, is supposed to be completed? Just a question.
I know.
Prairie Lake Park,
The,
Crystal Prairie Lake Park.
is that it? I don't know the name of it. The one that, yes, the one that you say that you're connecting Sedgwick County and the new park.
That funding is not within the 10-year CIP, so it's not, at least not complete. And I don't think it's even in the CIP anymore, but it is coming.
Okay.
It's got the concept of what's going on. I believe there's a master plan that's been approved for that. And they are, so part of what comes out with that project is actually, Tornado is actually digging a pond or digging sand similar to the sand pits that got built in the area.
Okay.
They are actually dredging that out as part of that project. And
So-
that's part of the park itself.
Okay.
That's a feature that's going in.
So you really, there's no date on that, but the road, we're trying to connect the two parks.
Ultimately, the path, that's the reason we started to look at that. That's part of the reason.
Okay.
When you look at like the master plan or the bike master plan, pedestrian master plan, that's part of the reason we would look at the 10-foot wide through this section.
Okay. And then is the north on Hoover, north of 29th, is that any time in the CIP currently?
No.
Okay. So we don't know what that's going to look like, but you would presume it's,
I would presume it's going to be a 3-lane section, exactly what you're looking like here. on the
Okay.
map. Would be my
Okay.
guess.
Any development up there is going to be very similar to this unless you build some sort of a big box,
Okay.
something like Maze
But-
Road, something. So
okay. But none of that is in current, we don't even, that's kind of way down the road.
It's future planning.
Okay. And then you said something about 21st and Hoover. Is that going to remain a four-way stop? Like it is, right, that's what it is currently, but when you, in this project?
We don't plan on signalizing it
Okay,
currently unless.
so it will stay a four-way?
Unless it meets, I don't believe it'll meet, it does not meet warrants. So-
We may evaluate that as part of the project. Maybe there's one way that actually has more significantly more traffic, so maybe we look at that as part of the design, but it's not the same.
Okay, it works pretty good as a four-way.
That's,
Yeah.
more likely probably when we go back with, when you add multiple lanes, and then it becomes a little more confusing, especially when people making turn movements when you have those, so we may look at that, but.
Okay, and you know, we were unable to go to that other meeting that you had because it happened so quick. We didn't get our letter till after August 25th. It was later, and then the meeting was September 2nd. So that's why I'm asking some of these questions where we could have had it earlier. So my last question is, when you do the construction, and you say it's one lane, will you make that where it's just local traffic only, or are you going to keep Hoover just?
Still has to remain a public road.
Wow, okay.
And it may be, when we get deeper in design, we actually have to add some temporary pavement on one side to keep the width we need, and we'll do that as part of the project. So we may actually shift things around a little bit, add some temporary widening, be able to make that work, so we can build what we need on the other side.
Okay.
That's yet to be seen, but should not impact anything we're looking at here as far as our design process.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry for that, but they spurred more questions.
Also move. That we approve, yeah, that we approve the plan as presented.
Seconded to approve, recommend approval of proposed design concept. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. All opposed, same sign. And next up, city council, right?
Yes. Dave, when is this going to city council? What's that? When is this going?
Oh, sorry,
Couple of weeks.
October,
5th, is that sound right?
sorry, I totally blanked.
I was on the presentation.
The city council, October.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our last presentation is Tuscarora Park.
All right. I see Elizabeth is on there.
I know that's not you.
That's right, I know you. Well, while we're getting this up, my name is Larry Hoopmer. I'm the landscape architect from Public Works Engineering. And I'm going to have a presentation with you on this project downtown. Actually, this project is not in District 6. However, a good portion of the downtown area is in District 6, and it borders District 1. And so this is sort of one of those projects that's kind of everybody's community. But did you have a PowerPoint?
Hey, Elizabeth, can you hear us?
You might not get. So, Elizabeth, can you hear us?
Elizabeth, can you hear us?
Yeah.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay, good. So would you like me to share the presentation from my screen, or how do you want to go about this?
Elizabeth, you can go ahead and share the presentation on your screen, and we'll be able to see it here.
Okay, that'll work.
I'm sorry, the sound's not great. I kind of can't hear you. I'm going to ask instead to share it on my screen.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, okay. Okay, can you see this?
Yes.
Oh, awesome, good.
ahead. Go ahead to the next slide.
Okay.
So again, this is Chester I. Lewis Reflection Square Parks downtown on our Douglas Avenue. It's basically between Market and Broadway, next to the Core 10 building. This is right down in the heart of downtown, DO school development. This park is being reimagined. A lot of development happened down here. So go on to the next slide. So I'm going to take you a little bit through the process here. There's a lot of partners that we've been working with throughout this process. Primarily, there's two major stakeholder groups that we've been engaging with. This has been kind of the culmination of several months. Actually, this project began, believe it or not, almost two years ago. And our discussions began with the Chester I. Lewis family. He still has descendants that live in the Wichita area, a granddaughter and a sister. And so those discussions started 2 years ago. And so you can see here, if you looked at this slide, there's all of our stakeholders. We have a community stakeholder group that's comprised of the Chester I. Lewis family, NAACP, the Kansas African American Museum, Community Voice, our developer stakeholder group, those are two developers adjacent to this, of course the Park Department, downtown Wichita, and then our two design team members here that are here tonight is Law Kingdon Architecture, is the landscape architect of record, doing the park design, and then they're teaming up with this. Anthony Joyner is with us as well tonight, and Elizabeth Stevenson, Mulberry Creative. So we've actually had 4 stakeholder meetings Thursday, had park board meeting earlier today, and this is the second of 2 DAB meetings. So you can see we're going through this process of a lot of engagement. Next slide. So let me set up the pointer available. Kind of quickly take you through, this is what the existing site used to look like. It was a Best Park Park that was developed probably 25, 26 years ago. There used to be a fountain in there, and a lot of this has been removed. You can see it's under construction now. Just to kind of give you some context here, this is the Core 10 building. I don't think you can see it very well, but there's the Athena building here. And this looks back towards Douglas Street, but a big subject matter here is this lunch counter. It will be getting relocated to another spot, and I'll let, if you have any questions about that, I'll let Anthony talk about that. So, next slide. So the vision for this project is, number one, we just want to create a very flexible space in the downtown area. This is really important in terms of our downtown corridor from Old Town all the way down to the riverfront area, and so it plays a significant part in the way it will be used in a variety of different ways. But it's also a wonderful opportunity to celebrate the life and the legacy of Chester I. Lewis, which was a very special man in our history, fought for social justice and racial justice. And so anyway, that's one of the things that we're going to talk a little bit more in depth this evening. Next slide. So about a year ago, during the pandemic, just before the pandemic, we were debating on having an open house. Of course, the pandemic happened. That was not an alternative that we had, so we elected to do an online survey that the city conducted. And what you're going to see here are the slides that were selected by, these were the ones that resonated the most with the community. These are examples of urban parks that would be similar in size and scale. Next slide. Seating examples, a big part of design is trying to understand how we're going to use the seating. And so, are they park benches? Is it movable seating? Do you have flexible seating? Just as, it's similar to what we have at NASCAR Park. Is it integrated? Is it elevated? So these are some of the slides. Again, we had numerous slides available. These were the ones that were selected. Next slide. Ground plane, as far as how do you embellish the ground plane? It could be decorative pavers, it could be wooden decks, it could be colored concrete. Here you see 2 slides that have artificial turf. We have artificial turf just down the street at NASCAR Park, and it's been very well received. Of course, you see here that's something that people were interested in having as well. Next slide. And last but not least, lighting is huge on this project. Historically, this was just a very small area. You know, it's in the downtown with tall walls. And historically, there was a lot of trees in this park with a very heavy canopy. You couldn't see into the park, which raised a lot of issues with perceptions with public safety. So very important that we want this to be very well lit. But just as importantly, we think it's an opportunity to do something very special in terms of illuminating the park in a special way, maybe with the art. So again, here are some examples of how you can use lighting into the benches, overhead lighting. You see these different patterns that are being shown there on the ground plane by doing some things nicely with the lighting. Next slide. So I'm going to ask Jeff to kind of take you through the park design, and then after that we'll have Anthony and Elizabeth tell you a little bit more about the art.
So I'm showing off a little bit tonight. So I've got my wife here, so I have 2 projects. I'm really trying to impress her. You know, you do that after a while. You got to do that. So this has been a really interesting project. Like Larry said, we've been working on it for a while. If you would have looked at what we had designed about a year ago, and then looked at this, you'd be shocked. It is a 180-degree difference. And a lot of that had to do with, we originally, this is the entry to the new DO school right here. Okay? And that's kind of the impetus for a lot of what's going on with this project. Originally, that was a second-story entrance because they actually have a bridge into the school, which I'll show you in a little bit. So we had a lot of terracing and things like that. Well, we looked at that with them and everyone else, and everybody going, you know, we've lost so much space because of these terraces that we had to get up to a second story. So they've rethought the entry to the building, and brought that down to the ground level, which we got rid of the terraces, which opened the whole space up, which really started to give us the opportunity to satisfy the goals that we talked about earlier, as a really flexible space. Now, it's a small area. This is a really tiny little park. It's kind of interesting looking at the last project. We couldn't hardly fit it all in one board, right? Well, this one's really small. So we want to make sure that we have the flexibility in the space in creating intimate areas, but also accommodate larger crowds when those occur. We want really good circulation, right? We want people to feel good about walking back to this alley. And the alley, we don't want it to be that forgotten space that we so often see. So this alley is getting improved to a much stronger pedestrian space as well. So you start seeing the new street line, you know, really comes across Corten, across the Exchange to the DO school, and then right up Athena. Back here in the alley, we've got some opportunity for food trucks as well. Go ahead and go to the next. On top of trying to encourage people to walk into and engage with this park, with the sidewalks, this green space, which is artificial turf right now, is actually gently sloping kind of down. Again, kind of easing people into the space. And that's really what we want to do, is try to engage people and really bring them in. The other thing we were really focused on is creating the framework for not only the circulation and the use, but also the art that's so important to this project. We viewed art as so integral that, you know, I don't think that, my feeling is you can't have one without the other on this project. In other words, this project wouldn't be nearly as strong without the art as it will with. And you'll see that when Anthony comes up and starts going into his presentation. Go ahead and go to the next. So here's another shot. This is that Athena building right here. The brick wall you see right here is in a lot better shape than what's out there today. But this is a pretty tall wall. It's pretty ambiguous. The screens that you see here, and we've got some perforated metal screens, and we've got some green screens that we have some grows on, and we've got some landscaping in here, and Really what this is all trying to do is bring that building wall down to pedestrian size, make it more comfortable. And then you've got this major primary walk that comes up to the DO school, and of course you see Exchange Place and some things that are going on potentially in the center space. Go ahead. The other thing is this kind of focuses the attention towards the center. You see some seating steps coming down. Again, we're trying to create a lot of opportunities for people to come sit in small groups or in large groups and be really make it a very, very flexible space. Go ahead and go to the next. And I'm going through this pretty quickly because Anthony's part of this is very detailed, so he needs a little bit more time. So we can always come back to any of these with questions later on. This is the, again, that entry to the DO school, and there's that little bridge that goes across the alley. So they've got an elevator and a set of stairs inside now that'll actually bring students and visitors up to that second story of the promise. Go ahead and go to the next one. Just a couple more shots. We started seeing kind of some interesting different types of seating. We started using a lot of different material, some wood material in this, but we also wanted to look at seating. We didn't think that we just wanted to sit on your butt. We want to have the opportunity to be able to kind of lounge on this. We want to lay on it. We don't want to dictate how people use it. So we started kind of freeing things up with the seating as much as we can. And we will have some movable seating as well before the end of this. And then along Quartet, these are a little bit darker, which is good because it means that I did my job. This space actually gets a lot more sun than you would actually expect, so we actually provided some shade. But this side of the park, really, I kind of always viewed as kind of the quieter side of the park, and now we'll see if that actually pans out to be true. But we've got some small areas, seating areas in here, again, for eating lunch or just kind of intimate settings along that way. And then we've got some shade from the trees, obviously in that late afternoon, to kind of block some of the sun coming down. I've kind of already alluded to the art, and again, I want to make sure I give Anthony plenty of time because he's got a lot to cover. I think what you'll see is how well integrated the art and the park are when Anthony goes through this project. But I'll be happy to answer any questions later on after he goes.
All right, everybody, thank you for your time. I'll try and make this as quick as possible. I know everybody's probably a little tired. So I'm just going to run you guys through kind of what, starting with what we envisioned here, why it was necessary to bring on an art consultant. And then I'm going to let Elizabeth talk about one of the artist's work, and then I'll come in and talk about Ellis to end, just to give you guys a preamble of what's going on. So coming into this project, we applied as the art consultants for this because we saw a tremendous opportunity here to do something that has not been done before. If you look at, and one of the things that we looked at first coming into this was what type of monuments and memorials already existed, and what did they look like, what did they do, but what were they missing? And when you think about a monument or a memorial that has been created, they're usually created to a specific point in someone's career. So when you go to Dr. King's statues, usually they're about one of his speeches. When you look at Jackie Robinson, usually it's about specific events, but you're not going to go to a Jackie Robinson memorial and see him with a baseball bat, but it talks about him being a tremendous businessman. And for us, that's something that's very important because when we asked people what they knew about Chester Lewis, the thing that we got was, well, he helped with the Gotham City. But he was so much more dynamic than that. He did so many other things that not only affected Wichita, but affected our nation as a whole. When we were thinking about the artists for this, we were thinking about what artists were accustomed to using their artwork to tell stories. And we wanted to stick with someone local, which is Ella Monique Bacchus. And you can see several of her projects throughout Wichita already. And then we brought in Matthew Mazzota, who's someone who has been known for doing this with structures nationally. But then we also thought about, since people know about desegregation of restaurants, which is the first thing you see